Tables and tabletop role-playing games have always gone hand in hand. GameMasters here, and today we are checking out the Weird, and I'll explain what it is and how you can use it in your game. Tables can exist in almost any given role-playing game system. Whether you are looking for a random item in a pile of loot, or are looking to see what all wares a merchant may have, or even random wilderness encounters as you trek through the woods. There are also random weather tables should you need to know if it suddenly turned from a calm and pleasant day to a thundering downpour of rain. But here's the thing. After years of using the same tables, it becomes predictable and boring. For example, rolling on a D&D's magic item table A, a roll of 1 to 50 is always going to be a potion of healing. A roll of 99 will always be a bag of holding. And as strange as Morkborg already is, a roll of 3 on their weather table will always be piercing wind, and a roll of an 11 will always be roaring thunder. Now, I can't say it any better than what this does. Role-playing games give us a chance to explore, discover, imagine, create, and face challenges. Our games shine brightest when they're vivid, unique, and a little bit mind-bending. So, how do you make another room full of orcs, another space station full of aliens, or another dark cult really special? How do you make every game session truly new and memorable, a moment of real discovery and imagination? You make it weird. The Weird is a book from Monte Cook Games, and while it can be used with their Cypher system, it can also be used with practically any other role-playing system out there because it's purely a massive book of just odd and strange and, well, weird tables. What's more, the tables in here can be used even if you are running a fantasy game, a sci-fi game, a modern game. Even a horror-themed setting can make use of this book. Playing the new Marvel Multiverse role-playing game with superheroes? This has that covered too. Heavy on the fairy tales? Tables will work there as well. Running a cyberpunk game? Or what about something direct from The Walking Dead where zombies lurk around every corner? This book is going to work with all of that. Now, before we jump into the specifics of the various tables found within, I first want to thank these weird supporters. Their dedication and contributions to my channel have been above and beyond, and I cannot thank them enough. If you would like to contribute by becoming a Patreon or YouTube member, I'll leave a link down in the description, and of course, you'll get my eternal thanks, and I'll add your name to this ever-growing list of supporters. The tables found within this book are broken down into 4 types. Interesting. This is where you are going for the reaction of, well, you don't see that every day. The example provided is seeing a cat that is bright red. Surprising. This is when you would stop and do a double take. Wait, did that just happen? Wait, that's impossible. In this example, that bright red cat can speak all human languages. Gonzo. No, not named after the Muppet, no. Gonzo is a term that means unconventional and bizarre. The reaction the DM is going for here is, wait, what the f***? Because instead of that multi-language speaking bright red cat hacking up a furball, it instead hacks up miniature robot versions of itself. Whimsical. This category is to get the players to question the reality a touch by asking, is this a dream? That bright red cat, when it meows, it can actually create a bridge to the moon. When we get to the specific tables, you'll see that each one is broken down into subsections that details out those 4 types: interesting, surprising, gonzo, and whimsical. Also, a moment ago, we talked about different genres, fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and the like. While there are many types of genres of tabletop role-playing games out there, this book covers 7, as most other genres would fall under a subsection of those. And while many of what we're about to mention could mesh with each other, the Weird tries to keep them separate for sake of being able to categorize other systems. This book covers fantasy. This would cover your general Dungeons & Dragons style games, games that use Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings as inspiration, something where magic prevails and dragons roam the land, or where fantastical creatures like walking trees wage war against evil wizards. Science fiction. Laser pistols, lightsabers, ion cannons, spaceships, questioning if androids dream of electric sheep, setting phasers to stun, evading the Borg, piloting massive mechs into large-scale battles, games like Traveler, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, even the Blade Runner RPG would fall into the sci-fi genre of role-playing games. Modern. Let's assume your tabletop game takes place here on Earth. While some might categorize something like Delta Green into sci-fi. It easily could fit into this modern category. Paperclip the role-playing game would for sure fall here. Or perhaps you're running a fun Scooby-Doo tabletop game, or even Kids on Bikes would fall into this category, even though there would be hints of horror in Kids on Bikes. Speaking of which, horror, while not exactly a genre unto itself, as let's face it, horror can pop up in any genre and setting. A single alien hunting a group of adventurers in their spaceship while they search for their bright red cat, for example, horror would be better categorized as the general and overall feeling of dread. Still, there are some games that could easily be categorized here. Call of Cthulhu would be a classic example, but it could also easily fit under modern, and Morkborg might fall under apocalyptic. So if you want to look closely at your game to determine if it falls under horror or something else, by all means. Fairy tales and myths look at specifics within the game. For example, Baba Yaga's hut, that large walking hut on chicken legs found in D&D, originates from Slavic folklore, a fairy tale. Perhaps you are running a game involving the Witchlight Carnival and heavy excursions into the Fae. Making use of this category is less about determining if your game's genre is a fairy tale and more if your game has elements of fairy tales and myths in it. If so, then the corresponding tables will work and fit well. Superheroes. We previously specified Marvel's multiverse role-playing game, as that is easily considered a superhero genre game, as is the Champions RPG, and if you want to go super old school, the DC Heroes RPG certainly belongs here as well. Using the tables from this genre can also be used in other games, or other genres rather, and I'll explain how you can use them when we get to the actual tables. Post-apocalypse. While this could also be considered a subgenre of sci-fi, especially if you're playing a game of the Terminator RPG, you have other games like The Walking Dead and Dead Rain that are fully housed in the apocalypse genre. Again, there easily could be some crossover with these tables into other genres as well. About the only genre type that isn't listed in this book would be the Wild West. But honestly, I suppose that could fall under modern, unless you're running a game based off of the Wild Wild West that incorporates a little bit of sci-fi in there. Something like Deadlands, which could fall under multiple genres. While tables are generally specific to the DM or Game Master in this book, there are also tables here that players can use for character backgrounds, appearances, and even abilities. For example, rolling a 15 on the interesting portion of the table, you have inherited a defunct coal mine that killed every miner who ever stepped foot in the place. But if you want to go with something a little surprising, that 15 would then make it so that all fortune cookies you open prescribe the same Fibonacci-esque lottery numbers. Want to go with something a bit more gonzo? You are the firstborn of a cursed family line, and upon your 66th birthday, you will become the vessel to a reality-swallowing demon. Your body is to be that demon's prison to keep the universe safe. Feeling more like wanting something whimsical? That rolled 15 would be finding a witch in a forest that tells you that your true power will manifest itself when an eclipse hangs in the sky above you. We mentioned back with the genres that you can use the tables in different ways. In this specific table, you'll note that it's listed for any genre, and then has each listing of genre on the side. Fantasy, sci-fi, modern, horror, fairy tale, and myth, superhero, and post-apocalyptic. If there is an element here that you don't like or doesn't fit, it's easy enough to change it. For example, let's say you're playing a hardcore horror setting, and you went with something surprising. In that 15 that you rolled, instead of fortune cookies showing lottery numbers, because the lottery may not exist, it might instead be that you perhaps run across the same sequence of numbers spray painted on random surfaces, and you just have to figure out what they mean and what they represent. There is also provided tables for your character's appearance, family, and backgrounds. If you want to spice up the description of the environment, there are tables for that too. Sure, moving through your run-of-the-mill dungeon is fairly straightforward, but walking through a stone-slabbed corridor doesn't impact the senses much. What if instead those stone slabs were embedded with prehistoric shelled fossils? Or what if you ran across grass that is made of silver? Or perhaps the tunnel itself is made of the rotting meat of some great carcass. Or perhaps you discover a carpet that is made of woven human eyelashes. In total, you get tables for dungeon doors, furniture, Walls, floors, corridors, even treasure. You might find a scroll of undead conjuring that was pinned in vampire blood. While it only includes dungeons in here for a fantasy setting, it's easy enough to include these elements in other genres. For example, if you are playing sci-fi instead of fantasy, that scroll that you found, instead of it being a scroll of undead conjuring pinned in vampire blood, it might be a sheet of copy paper with instructions to shut down a T-800 scrawled in engine oil. There is a neat section on making normal things weird in here as well. For example, if you are playing in a sci-fi setting, you might run across a radio. Roll a 45, and under the interesting section, it might radiate microwave energy that can cook nearby food. Just don't stand too close. Or likewise, on the Gonzo section, it allows the person that owns it the ability to upload their mind to the cloud in the event of their death. Playing in a fantasy setting and want some weird magical accidents? Let's say you cast Fireball and failed. On the whimsical section, rolling a 9 would cause faint music, wordless and serene, to play in that area forever. But should you choose something surprising instead, that same 9 would instead be that objects and creatures in the area are duplicated, but that every duplicate is flawed in some way. There is a table for weird spell modifications, weird creature motivations or needs, weird side effects, a really cool table for taverns to make them interesting and strange, themes, shticks, or gimmicks. And while this is for superheroes, it easily could be used for other genres. As the sidebox states, heroes and villains, not only do they have a power, but they usually also have a theme. For example, we might roll a 5. The villain shows up, never speaks, wears a mask with no mouth, and his or her superpower allows them to kill by stilling a beating heart. Or perhaps you want a weird tattoo, either on a player or on an NPC. And remember, there are 4 sections of each table, so interesting, surprising, gonzo, and whimsical. There are more tables listed here in this book than I can count, from weird pets to weird forms of undead, from weird excuses to weird plants, from weird weather to weird book titles. If you're looking for something to spice up your next campaign, this book delivers. If you want to make normal things a bit more weird, this book has that covered. If you want to create things from the ground up that are just 7 steps outside of reality, you can do that with this book. It even mentions that should you run across entries that don't fit your mood, simply change the category or alter it altogether. The point is to use this book as inspiration. For example, should you run across an octopus, but it lives on land, you could go crazy and make it gonzo style by giving it an agenda or personality. Make it a wizard, and make it simply an advanced scout for a much nastier group of beings with cybernetic lungs. We've mentioned a lot of different games in the video so far, and it's important to remember that this book, The Weird from Monte Cook Games, is system agnostic. Everything provided is simply ideas. You can use them exactly as they are written, or you can use them as inspiration for something that is custom tailored to fit your specific game. Needless to say, I'm pretty blown away by the vast number of tables and ideas that The Weird offers up, and I gotta thank Monte Cook Games for sending me a review copy. I'll certainly be adding it to my toolbooks of GM tools. I highly recommend it, and if you're interested in snatching up a copy, I'll leave a link to it down in the description. For me, the most important elements to this book is not just the vast amount of tables, but it's more the concepts and ideas that it offers up. Something close to like 12,000 entries are listed, so it really does have something in here for everyone. If you are running a game and aren't sure what genre it would fall under, list it down in the comments and let's see what we can come up with to categorize it. Likewise, I'd love for you to chat with me down in the comments about what you think of this book, The Weird. Until next our paths cross, may you get weird.